Awesome. Okay, let's make a start in that case. Hello, everyone. This is another Birmingham user group. I will do a very quick intro and then we'll get on with the sessions. We've got two great sessions this evening. So thanks for coming. Looks like we've got a few more people joining still. So yes, welcome. Today's agenda, as you probably know already, but I'll just do the recap. So I'll do a few minutes of introduction and a bit of a catch up, and then we're going to have Alison do her session first, talking about career planning, career advice. So Alison is super experienced on the recruitment side and all things kind of careers. So looking forward to that session. And then after that, we have Emma Darcy all the way from Philadelphia in the States, and she's going to give us an overview of the Centre of Excellence Starter Kit that she's been working with. So really popular topic, and she will be joining us about 6 p.m. I guess. But yeah, let's carry on in that case. And then we'll do a bit of a Q&A afterwards if we want to have questions for the speakers or just general questions about Dynamics or Power Platform. We can do that too. Okay, this is the team. Obviously, I'm the one in the middle. I'm Andrew Bibby. I'm part of this little team that runs the Birmingham user group, which we've been going for quite a while now. What, 2 years, 3 years? I don't know. Starting to lose track.
2016.
2016, yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Doesn't time fly? But yeah, Neil Parkhurst, MVP, I'm sure you will have heard of from all his exploits with Omnichannel and exams and what his great blog that he's got. And we have Imtiaz Hussain, who's a Dynamics Power Platform consultant in Birmingham, so really experienced functional consultant. If I'm painting the wrong picture of you, Imtiaz, let me know. But yeah, great man to speak to if you need some work done on Power Platform and Dynamics. And that's the team that puts this little event together. So a few virtual meeting tips. You've been through this kind of thing over and over again, but I will just cover a couple of points. But as you come in, if you're not muted already, if you could mute yourself, so just so that we don't get background noise for where you are, obviously there's kids about and stuff like that, can be a bit off-putting for speakers. So yeah, it'd be great if you could mute. If you're unmuted or you accidentally unmute yourself during the session, don't be offended if we mute you, if it's causing a bit of feedback or whatever. Put your questions as we go on through the sessions. If you can put questions in the chat, and I think Alison, if you don't mind, or how do you want to answer questions? Do you want to do it as we go along, or do we want to do it at the end? I'm completely easy.
I'm quite happy to be pretty interactive. If people want to raise a hand and or even butt in, that's fine with me. No problem. I'm not
perfect. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So raise a hand if you want to put your questions in the chat. If you don't feel like coming off mute or whatever. Then I can, or one of the team will ask the question of Alison at an appropriate point. So we don't want to just be butting in every time, but at an appropriate point, we'll ask your questions that you put in the chat. Or absolutely, it'd be great if you want to come off mute and put your webcam on, and we get that slightly more interactive experience for these virtual events. Please do that too. Okay, if you could state your name. Before speaking, just say a quick hello and then speak clearly. We have Emma from the States just joining. Hi, Emma. And yeah, if you could speak nice and clearly, we have people joining from around the world, so you might not. Yeah, it's just best to be able to enunciate your question. Okay, next meeting. So we have another meeting set up already. And it is going to be on the 17th of March at 5:30 p.m. So exactly the same time slot. We feel like this is kind of working in terms of, people just want to join straight after work in the UK, or it's earlier in the day in the States, or it's slightly later in the evening for Europe. But we quite like this slot, I think, team. It seems to be working out all right. But we do need some speakers. We can't do these events without people that want to come on and share their knowledge, talk about some topic that's interesting for them or they've been working on recently. So you don't have to be an experienced speaker. A really common question for me is like, I don't really know what I'm going to talk about. I'd like to do a session, but I can't really choose a topic. Speak to us, and we can kick around some ideas. Everybody has something that they're working on that they know that a little bit more about, or they're a few pages ahead in the book than somebody else. So, don't be afraid to come and do a quick talk. If you want to do a shorter talk, like 15, 20 minutes, that's absolutely fine. If you want to do a longer talk, again, that's absolutely fine. So we can be flexible on the scheduling. But there's an email address there where you can get in touch with us and say, I'm interested in speaking, or absolutely get in touch with any of the team, me, Neil, Imtiaz, on LinkedIn or however. Yeah, let us know if you want to speak. You can register for the next event already. Obviously, we don't have an agenda yet because we don't have any speakers, but it's up on Meetup. If you just go to Power Platform Birmingham, there is a new event registered then, and obviously the agenda will be updated a bit nearer the time. Okay, so that's all I want to cover. Coming up, we've got Alison first, like I say, talking about career advice, and then I can see Emma's just joined. Hi, Emma, and she'll be following on from Alison, and we will do questions as we go. But at that point, I'm going to hand over to Alison and stop sharing my screen and allow Alison to do that. We just want to switch over. Are you all good to go, Alison?
I'm born ready.
I know you are. Awesome. Okay. Well, take it away.
Did you lose me there?
No.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome to my user group chat in the Birmingham user group about career planning. Just a little intro because I like to use the UG slides. My name's Alison Mulligan. I'm the CEO at Maximus IT and a business applications MVP. I'm currently on version 9.1. I'm sorry, that's probably, yeah, anyway, moving on. In the last year, I've been at UGs and community events all over the place, albeit virtually. And I do enjoy attending them and hearing other people's sessions and hearing the questions that come up. What I hope to gain from today's meeting is if I can encourage at least one person to plan their career, I will consider that a triumph. And if I could visit any place in the world, where would it be and why? My next goal is to visit the Microsoft headquarters in Seattle, because obviously it's our mothership and I've never been there. So if you want to join my mailing list, then I don't spam. I don't share your details with anybody else. It's purely just very occasionally I get some content that is of interest to people in the Power Platform community, and I'll push that content out to you, but you won't get tons and tons of stuff. So today's subject, your career is your responsibility, presented by me, Alison Mulligan. And why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, because I have over 20 years experience in recruiting into the tech sector, and I've recruited for large companies and small companies all around the world. And for the last 5-6 years, I've been specializing in recruiting for D365 and now the Power Platform. And I am a D365 and Power Platform user and a power addict. And the first thing I would say, or the first thing that I want to highlight to you is, like, your career progression is up to you. Your career is more important to you than it is to anybody else. Your manager, your employer, the CEO of the company that you work for is not as invested in getting the result from your career that you want to get. It doesn't make any difference to them apart from feeling nice about helping you to move up. It's not as important to them. It's important to you because it has a bearing on how happy you are, how much money you earn, how comfortable your lifestyle is, all of those kind of things. And the point of me highlighting this to you is that your career planning your career is not just about moving jobs for the sake of it. It's very much more about having a specific plan and a journey and a destination to get to that is specifically targeted towards your career. Companies employ you for a specific result that you generate for them, right? For a lot of people, it's saving time, or it's saving money, or it's making money. Sometimes, depending on what you do, it's for a specific result. If you're a developer, although the net result of what you do is making money, you're creating products or whatever it is that you do for your organization. So that's what you're employed to do. And whilst companies will try and make working for them a nice experience. They want you to be happy and feel cared for, and they want you to feel like they are dedicated towards your career development, and they are to a certain extent, but it's not their responsibility. It's not the responsibility of your employer they don't owe you a living. Nobody owes you a living, right? And nobody owes you a career development plan, and nobody owes you a promotion or any of those things. You can go to work and you can do a good job and make money for your organization, but like, in fairness, that's what you're paid to do. I do a separate session, which we can probably touch on if we have time, which is about having a review process. Quite often people tell me that the reviews from their employer are a bit lackluster, or they don't even have them. But you know what? It's your career. Take responsibility for it. Build your own review session. I promise you, like any of you that are managers, I know full well you're listening to this saying, like, if my team came up to me and they had already done their own review process, reviewed their performance against their objectives, and came and presented the results to me, I'd be absolutely delighted. So it gives you responsibility for your own career, but also it shows that you're invested in yourself as a person. What gives a better impression to your employer? Letting them do all of the legwork on something that's actually important to you, or you doing the legwork for them. Like, I know what I would prefer. You need to know your destination as well. It's super important for you to understand where you're going. Like, you can't just jump in a car and fill it up with fuel and set off and just go. Well, you can, obviously, but like, where will you end up? You need to know where the end destination is, and knowing where you're going and why you're going there will get you through the tough times. We all have tough times at work, even if you really enjoy the company that you work for, and you enjoy the job that you do. There are sometimes it's just tougher than others, and sometimes maybe a manager changes and you end up working for someone that maybe you don't have a great rapport with, and it's really tough. But sometimes you've just got to stick it out for the greater good, or well, not the greater good, but for the bigger purpose. And knowing what you're doing and why will help to get you through those times, or to get you through those grotty jobs that just sometimes you don't enjoy. We've all been there. I'm sure you all know what I'm talking about. I won't labour the point. So what we're going to cover, and this is not a slide heavy presentation. There's not a lot of slides involved in this. It's mostly me talking a lot, which anybody who knows me is fairly par for the course anyway. So what we're going to cover is why you need a plan and how to make the plan. And for the purposes of time, this is an overview, but I can make more detailed content available for you. So first of all, why you need a plan. And I can't stress this enough. I already said to you that a company employs you to deliver a specific result. And they do, and they want you to feel warm and fuzzy and like they care about you, and they kind of do, but like they do it because it's something that they have to do. They're not genuinely invested in helping you to get to being the CEO of a software company. They just want to get the best out of you, and they know that caring about your career and your development, or being seen to care about that, is something that helps you to feel like you're cared for in the organization, and that will enable you to do better work for them, or will enable you to care more about the organization. But what that also means is actually that you're at the mercy of other people. If you don't have a plan and a strategy, and you don't know where you're going, you may just go into a job and you might get a promotion and you might not, and it might just be the next automatic roll up for you rather than a planned next move. But actually, all you're doing is you're just working on someone else's goal. If you don't have a strategy, you're just helping your manager or your manager's manager to fulfill their goals, or for your company to fulfill their goals. And that's great, and you should do that. But you are getting paid for that, and that's lovely, and that's a fair exchange of money for services. But that the doing of your job on a day-to-day basis doesn't contribute towards the overall career plan, right? And when I say career plan and destination, just for clarity on that, what I'm talking about is, I think I said earlier, maybe you want to be a CEO of a software company by the time you're 50, or or 55. Maybe you want to retire by the time you're 55. Maybe you want to set up your own consultancy practice by the time you're 40. Like it doesn't matter what the destination is, or and that may not, setting up your own consultancy practice may not be the final destination, without sounding like I'm talking about dying, but it might not be like the last link in the chain, but like it might be the big milestone that you want to get to. Because honestly, if you then go and set up your own consultancy practice and you do well, the likelihood of you then going back to being employed by someone else is probably quite slim. So that is a good goal to aim for. Being in the C-suite for a large software vendor like Microsoft or something like that, that might be a goal that you want to get to. But I promise you, without question, you don't get to be in the C-suite of Microsoft or any other large software vendor, or you don't get to be in those bigger positions without having a plan and a strategy of how to get there. Like nobody that's in that level of position got there by accident. They didn't just join Microsoft one day and they just kept getting promoted. That's not how it works. And likewise, if your goal is that you want to set up your own company, again, people don't get there by accident. Well, it's not fair. Setting up your own company is something that sometimes people do when they suddenly find themselves out of work. But actually, if it's a proper goal of like, I need to learn all of these things in order to get to that point, because that's the thing I'm aiming towards, right? That's the thing of building a successful consultancy business. Somebody's not on mute. So, and having that goal in mind, that you're aiming towards a C-suite position with a vendor, or that you're aiming towards a C-suite or director position with a large partner, or even a medium-sized partner, or that you're looking to set up your own business providing consultancy services, or whatever it is that you're aiming towards doing. Knowing that is your destination will give you the motivation to go through the less exciting stuff, because sometimes the role that you're doing, or the next role on for you, it might not be something that you want to do, but it might be something that you have to do in order to learn something that you need to learn. So to give you an example, maybe your next role from where you are involves managing personnel, and maybe that's not something that you're hugely enamored of, but part of that role is that you would have your own P&L, and actually the end goal for you is that you want to run your own business. Well, you need to learn about P&L, and someone else is going to pay you and teach you how to do that. So although that move isn't great, also if you're going to set up your own business, you need to manage people, and someone else is going to train you how to do those things. So it may not be something that you particularly want to do. And I can tell you from my own experience, and from the experience of nearly 25 years of recruiting people for the tech sector, if the idea of like that next role with all of that extra responsibility of managing people and having a P&L and all that kind of stuff makes your eyes roll back in your head, like you're not alone. Plenty of people feel that way. Plenty of people don't want that role. But, it's sometimes something like that is just a means to an end. And sometimes when you're listening for the 20th time as to why someone can't do the work that they need to do because their cat was sick on the carpet, and that knowledge that, look, this is not forever, this is just for now, and this is just so that I can learn these things that I need to learn to get you through to the next stage, right? If you think of it as like a game of chess, the game of chess, you start, everybody has 16 pieces, and the end goal is for one of you to get the other into checkmate, right? And if you don't have a strategy and you don't have a plan and you haven't got all of those moves planned out, and you don't know what decisions you're going to make if certain situations arise, then the likelihood is that they're going to get you in check, right? And the company that you work for is then guiding your career, and they may be guiding it, well, they're almost certainly guiding it in a direction that benefits them, which may or may not benefit you. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, but we don't know. We don't honestly know if it's going to guide you in a direction that actually is of ultimate benefit for you, because we don't know what your destination is. So, understanding what it is that you're trying to achieve and why you need to achieve that, or understanding what it is that you have to learn and why you need to learn it, helps you to make the right choices. Sometimes some of you might come into a situation where you're working for a large organization and there's two next career moves for you role wise, and you don't know which one to pick. Well, having put a plan together and knowing where you need to go is going to help you to make the choice, to make the best choice of what's available to you. And it's possible that that next role is the best choice is not either one of those two roles. Maybe you need to get something out of the next move that is not available to you internally, and you have to look elsewhere. But I would always recommend, getting the most out of one organization when you're in there, and only moving externally once there's nothing more that they can give you, right? So that's just as an aside. So, summarizing this whole area, like the reason for needing a plan is you need to know where you're headed. Otherwise, you're just in a car full of petrol with sunglasses and half a carton of cigarettes, but you don't really know where you're going. Blues Brothers reference. So how to make the plan, right? So this is the crux of it, I guess, which is, where do you ultimately want to be? We touched on it briefly. Give some thought to where it is that you want to be and why do you want to be there. So, maybe you're someone like me that doesn't have kids and has never got married, and just, it's me and my boyfriend, and all we really are interested in from a purely selfish perspective is having enough money to be able to do the things that we want to do, to not be worried about money, to, we're very fortunate that we're in a position that if neither one of us ever worked again, we'd be fine. But, we wouldn't be, going on cruises and safaris 4 times a year. Not that that's, not that that's what we want to do, but, we're not going to be driving around in Lamborghinis and eating lobster thermidor and drinking champagne with the money we've got. But we're okay, and that's fine for us. And so for you, it's what do you want to get out of it? What your career is essentially a means to an end. It's something that you do to give your life purpose, but it's also something that you do to earn money, to be able to feed yourself or to feed you and your family, and to put a roof over your head, and to be able to go on holiday and take the kids off to Disneyland. Whatever it is that you want to do, then you can pair up your career plan with that. Some people want to be millionaires. Some people want to be multi-millionaires. Other people are more driven by the type of work that they do. And it doesn't matter what your goal is. It doesn't matter what it is that you want to get out of it, whether it's job satisfaction or money or, somewhere in between. It doesn't matter. And, it's not for anybody else to judge. It's what's important to you. It's what you want to do. A lot of people are very, very focused on work-life balance, and they would give up being in a career that pays $500,000 or in a role that pays £500,000 a year in order to spend more time with their family while their kids are young. That's fine. Maybe that's what you want to work into your plan. Maybe you want to get to the point where, like, now I want work-life balance by the time my kids are in their mid to late teens and they don't really look up from their tablets or phones to talk to me anymore. By that time I want to be focused more on work, or I want to do something different. I want to go in a different direction. But that's what you need to give some thought to. And it's not easy. It's not as if you're just going to sit down and go, oh, yeah, well, I want this. You have to consciously give it some thought. It's something that requires you to sit down, decide what you want, decide what's going to work for you, for your life plan, for your life goals, whatever those might be. Maybe you've got a bucket list. Maybe owning a Lamborghini is on that bucket list. Maybe going on cruises and safaris is on that bucket list. Maybe spending more time with your family is on that list. Like, it doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter what anybody else thinks of it. It's you. It's your life goals. It's your plan. And this career plan should be a way of you. A career generally is a way of facilitating the life that you want, right? So you have to roll it all up into a holistic view of what you expect your life to look like. So once you've got to that stage and you've got some idea about, what you want and what you ultimately want to get to before you hang up your shoes and then spend your late 50s backpacking around Asia or something equally unseemly, you need to do a review of where you are now versus where you want to be. And most of you, if not all of you, probably on this call have worked on customer projects, and you always have an as is and a to be. And like, it's the same thing with your life plan, with your career plan. You need to understand where you are now, and you need to understand what skills, knowledge, abilities, personality traits, soft skills, what have you, that you need to get to that end goal. So if we're saying that you want to be, a director at a large partner, what are the things that you need to know and understand, and you need to be able to do well in order to get into that role? And which are the ones that you can already do now, and which are the ones that you can't? Like, it sounds like super simple now I say it, and you're probably just going, yeah, why didn't I think of that? And maybe you already did, maybe you already know this, but you need to understand where you are now and what the steps are between where you are now and where you want to get to. And like, being realistic, you could be in a company, in a large partner now, and it may be that route from it being, maybe you're a senior consultant now, or maybe you're a solution architect, and maybe the route from there to director is something that's actually very easy and obvious for you, and maybe they will support and train you on that journey, and you have a very well devised development plan with your employer. That is awesome. Like, if you're already there, great. I probably don't really need to tell you any of this stuff. You probably already know it. It's possible that it may not be the best plan for you, so I would still urge you to sit down and think about your career plan as being part of your holistic life plan, just to make sure that any plan that you have in place is in line with your personal goals and where you want to be as a person, as an individual, as a family, however you define your unit. But either way, you've got certain steps that you need to take to get from here to there. And the first thing that you need to do is to make a list of all of the training that you might need. Is there anything specific that you need to get? I alluded to it earlier. Maybe you need to learn how to do your own balance sheet and your own P&L. Maybe you need to learn how to manage people. Maybe you need to learn how to code something. Maybe you've been doing D365 CE and you need to learn Power Platform, or you need to learn F&O, or maybe you've been doing F&O and you need to learn Power Platform. Maybe because you want to go into a director level position, you need to have an overall understanding of business planning, business contingency planning, and change management, and all of those things that a director of a company would be responsible for that you don't know. So just sit down and make a list of all the things that you need to know, or that you think you need to know, what support and training that you might need. Some of that, training wise, some of it you'll be able to do yourself. If it's something like technical qualifications, we all know that we can sign up for training and exams and certifications with Microsoft if that's what you need. But it's likely that there's an element of non-technical training that you need, that you would need to take outside advice from. So that leads me on to step 5, which is you need to get a mentor. A mentor is someone that's going to be able to help you to identify the gaps in your skills that you might not be aware of. They're going to be able to give you some guidance and some training and some personal development on some of the soft skills that you need to learn. But the most important thing is, most people think that their manager is their mentor. They're not. They're absolutely not. As I said earlier, your company and your manager are looking at your career development from a perspective of what benefits them and the company most. It isn't necessarily what benefits you. And they don't, and also part of building your career and planning your career is going to involve some training on how to manage your manager and how to be able to push through blockages with your manager, or to, in some cases, get past your manager because maybe you want to be their manager. So, a manager is not the person to be your mentor. It should never be, it can be someone inside your organization, but it shouldn't be someone who's in the same stream or track as you. Like there could be a conflict of interest. You might share information that then gets fed back to someone else. Like it's just, the whole thing is too risky and it doesn't serve you in the way that it should. So find an outside mentor. There are tons of people that offer a mentoring service. There's tons of people in the community that would be happy to mentor people. You can pay people to be a mentor. You know, there's plenty of opportunities for you available there. So that is pretty much everything I have to tell you on this whistle-stop tour of career planning. If you need some advice or you have a question that maybe you don't want to ask in a public forum, then by all means, go ahead and book a call with me just using this QR code. I'll give you like 5 more seconds to take a shot of that. And then I've got my LinkedIn and Twitter coming up for you now. There's my LinkedIn. If you'd like to connect with me, please feel free. Always love to connect with people on LinkedIn, and equally happy to connect with people on Twitter. So I think all that remains is to say thank you so much for listening to me drivel on at quite a pace for half an hour, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Alison, thank you. Whilst people are getting brave and coming off mute, I will pick up a couple of things in the chat. There's been some good conversation in the chat. Actually, Emma asked a good question, which yes. I can absolutely relate to. Emma, I don't know if you want to ask it or I can carry on.
Yeah, sure thing. Hey, Alison or Bubbles. Hey. I never know which name to refer to you as these days. Your hair is fantastic.
Thank you.
Not really applicable to me. I'm pretty happy with what I do, but I've definitely got a couple of colleagues. What do you recommend for people that are just kind of not really sure what they want to do and they're kind of just coasting?
Yeah, like it's super common, and like that is in and of itself a symptom of not having an end destination, right? And if that's what they need help and guidance on, that's where a mentor can come in really useful. They can talk to someone like me. I'm fairly used to guiding people through career transition or career planning, or like there is a ton of people in this community that will have done their own career planning. There's a couple of people that are awesome mentors, people like Ben Volmer, who I know you know, and a few people here might know. If he doesn't have the capacity to mentor because he's just started a new role, so maybe he doesn't, he is one of those people that's so well connected, he will know plenty of other people that are set up to mentor. But like, just take some guidance and advice from another person. And sometimes, and that person doesn't have to be a career mentor. Sometimes just going through the process of trying to formulate an articulate reason why you don't know what you want to someone else forces you to think about it and to work through it yourself. Also, like, you can literally go online. If you did a Google search for, you know, I'm stuck in my career, what should I do? You'll get all kinds of mostly weird answers, but there's quite a lot of good information on places like Quora and stuff like that. So, you know, there's so many sources, but like anybody that wants to have a chat with me, my ear is always available for someone that wants just to, you know, maybe get some ideas or whatever. I hope that helps.
I think this has kind of triggered a lot of people to maybe have a think about what they're doing with their lives, maybe. But it's a great point, and I've been rereading a book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. I can't remember what it's called now, but there's 7 things that you should think about doing. One of them that came out of what you just said there, Alison, is to be proactive, and that's one of the steps, and really kind of go out on the front foot, I think, and also start with the end in mind, which is like, even if it doesn't have to be your ultimate destination, you want to be a director or you want to be this or that, what does the next 3 years look like? What does that end look like? Otherwise, exactly as you said, you're just sort of driving along with no direction, which is that coasting thing that, you know, I've totally been guilty of, you know, but maybe coasting's working for you at the moment, but there'll come a point where you maybe want a bit more. So great advice. There's a couple of other things in the chat. Andrew, this is Manoj. Do you have suggestions on how people can find a mentor? I mean, maybe you've picked up on that a bit already.
Yeah, like ask around. You know, 9 times out of 10, somebody that you know or work with or someone you know in the community has a mentor. there is also there's a lot of mentor matching services online for you to be able to find people who are professional mentors, and that is the ultimate. Like, you know, that is the best kind of mentor that you can get, but you will have to pay for it. Like, and honestly, it's a bit like finding a good tax advisor. It's like the best money you'll ever spend, 100%. Like, it's absolutely worth doing it. Some of them are cheaper than others. You know, I've spoken to people that have offered to mentor me. One guy charges 25 grand a quarter. Another guy charges 250 grand a year. So, you know, they do, some of them are pretty rich, but some of them will just do a, you know, pay as you use it service, or like, you know, a fee per session, kind of like seeing a shrink or something like that. You know, there's all kinds of options available, but ask around your own network first. You know, ask around the people that you know, if anybody's knows of someone that does mentoring. I already said that you shouldn't use your own manager as a mentor, but that doesn't mean you can't use someone else's manager as a mentor. Like, you know, so like perhaps, you know, somebody else that does a similar job to you but works for a different company, you could always say, ask them if you think their manager is open to mentoring. Again, community is always a great place to start. Probably post a question out on Twitter and see what kind of responses you get. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think like I've mentored a couple of people, and I don't count myself as a fantastic mentor, but other than having lots, you know, more experience than they do in the industry, but I think it pays. It's one of those things that you can have an amateur or you can have a professional. It pays to have somebody that knows what they're doing with mentoring. You'll get more value from that, I think. So, you know, paying for it is definitely, you know, it may pay off in the long run. Last question that I can see is from Sophie, and it's a bit more about the trends within the recruitment industry, I think. But Sophie's asking, am I the only one seeing more head of CRM, CRM lead, or business systems lead roles coming through? Is the industry placing more significance on Dynamics or CRM as a whole, as a more important thing to a organization? Do you see that?
That is a great looking question. I haven't seen an increase in the number of those types of roles. Like, I get what you're saying, Sophie, with like the head of practice for CRM or lead CRM, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think there probably have been, like, it's been over a period of time. I think there has been an increase in awareness that you need someone. The CRM was always kind of like, you know, F&O was always the poster child, wasn't it, of this kind of thing. And then, you know, CRM was like, oh, well, you don't really need to do much with CRM. So yeah, like this, I think if anything, it's probably driven by a heavier reliance on the associated technology around the CRM stuff. So the Power Platform stuff and how everything links together with Dataverse. And like, essentially D365 is just like a big Power App. And I think the way everything is going is you probably won't have CRM. That's probably a dangerous opinion to strike out with, but you know, I see more and more people achieving such great results with things like using Power Automate and things like that. That, you know, I think CRM, there's a lot more companies, I would say, Sophie, this might be the reason why there's a lot more companies who've been building a dedicated CRM practice that they didn't have before. So maybe that accounts for the uplift that you've seen. But again, I would say it's more driven towards the overall Power Platform technology in the longer term. But yeah, like there's definitely been a shift in the last couple of years for sure. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Jaha, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, has asked, can you put your QR code up again, just so that
which one would you like?
You can get your which the one, I guess, for the to get in contact with you. I put your LinkedIn in the chat, if you don't mind.
This one?
So the mailing list he's asking for.
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Okay, perfect. So we'll leave that up there just for a few seconds, but thank you, Alison. Thanks very much. I think it was really useful advice, giving me something to think about as well. I don't know if I need to talk to you about that offline, Alison, but
always talking about stuff anyway.
But yeah, thank you very much. I think we're going to draw a close. Actually, we've had a last minute question come in. Can you name a few product-based companies in the UK using Dynamics 365 CE? Naveen, maybe I will follow up in the chat just to keep this on topic, and so we'll move on to Emma. Maybe if you could expand on that one a little bit as well in the chat, and then I can follow up on that. But let's switch over to Emma now, who's going to talk about Centre of Excellence. So Emma,
Alrighty.
if you're able to share your screen, and we'll crack on with that.
All right.
Thank you Thanks,
no
Alison.
worries. Can y'all hear me okay?
We can.
Cool. Okay. I am working off of one screen, so bear with me while we get this all up and running. Okay.
Awesome.
Alrighty, so I cannot see the chat, so if there are any questions, I will take care of those at the end. Full disclosure, today was Inauguration Day in the US, so I have been fully distracted, and there may be portions of this presentation that are missing, or the animations might be wrong, but you know, whatever, we're going to wing it. It's 2021, here we are, we survived. Okay, so we're going to be chatting about the Center of Excellence Starter Kit today, and I'm going to be going through a fairly thorough guide from installation all the way through to configuration and some best practices. So quick look at our agenda today. For those of you I have not yet met, we're going to do a very quick introduction into who I am and why I'm talking about the Center of Excellence. We're going to take a look at what the Center of Excellence actually is, what it consists of, and of course, how to install it, as it is quite a complex piece of kit to install into an environment. We're also going to take a look at some of the recommended best practices and a couple of lessons I've learned from some real-world implementations. We will take a quick look at what is also coming next for the Center of Excellence, and finally at the end we will do a quick Q&A. Cool, so for those of you who do not know me, I am Emma Darcy, and I'm also better known as the tattooed CRM girl in the community. So if you are looking for me on any of the usual socials apart from Facebook, which is the devil, you will not find me there. You will find me on the Instagrams and the Twitters under tattooed CRM girl. I am currently a Power Platform developer at Applied Information Sciences, recently moved over there and having a great time with some of our other fellow MVP friends. And I'm actually based in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, originally from Dublin in Ireland. I'm also a business applications MVP. I tend to specialize a lot in Power Virtual Agents and chatbots, and a dabble in marketing occasionally as well. I am a cat mom and probably what you would recommend and called a hardcore gamer as well. So usually if you don't find me developing something on the Power Platform, I'm generally petting random cats or playing some ridiculous games. And just for context, and always, it would not be an Emma Darcy presentation if there were not random pictures of my cats. So these are my cats. This is Oscar and Lewis. If I were at home, you would very likely have Oscar in the background meowing loudly in my face, but I am currently not at my residence, but maybe next time we'll get Oscar involved. Cool, so now you have an idea as to who this crazy person is. We're going to talk a little bit about what the CoE actually is. So if you were to Google Center of Excellence Power Platform, this is what you're going to get from the Microsoft Docs page. Basically, it is a collection of components and tools that are designed to help you get started with developing a strategy for adopting and supporting Microsoft Power Platform with a focus on Power Apps and Power Automate. Ton of words. I prefer to put these things into my own words so that they make a lot more sense. So in easy to understand, sort of kind of English, they're basically a bunch of super useful tools, which includes apps and flows very conveniently. And then also some resources to help your organization kick ass at implementing the Power Platform and also transforming your users into superheroes. So adoption is super, super important when you're implementing any new technology at an organization, and the Power Platform is absolutely no considerations as to. So now we have a very quick idea as to what the Center of Excellence actually is. So a couple of tools that you will be implementing into your environment to help your organization adopt and manage at scale. This is actually what it looks like. So when you go ahead and you download the actual Center of Excellence, and we'll take a look at how you do that a little bit later on, this is what the package actually consists of. So as you can see, it is quite extensive. There are several different solutions in here that need to be installed. So a couple of things that we will take a look at. Each individual solution does install a bunch of unique tables, flows, and apps into the environment. I would always recommend that you install this into an environment specifically for the Center of Excellence, which I will be referring to as the CoE from now on out. Always install your core solution first. So the core solution is going to be what contains a lot of the backbone of the Center of Excellence, a lot of the tools and the tables and the fields that you're going to need to get set up. And I always recommend, and you're going to see me specify this throughout the presentation today, it is quite an extensive setup. So do take the time to go through each of the Spring solutions, go through each of the flows separately, and make sure you know what you're installing and what you're getting involved in. So essentially, the Center of Excellence can really be broken down to 3 core components, and I've broken them down into admin, governance, and nurture. So the admin section, and we're going to take a look at what all is involved in the admin component, basically allows you to get up and get running with the Power Platform at speed. So it's kind of like a jump start for your organization with the Power Platform. It does have a couple of admin apps as well in there we're going to take a look at in closer detail. And you can also automate processes. And you'll see throughout these 3 different pillars that you actually automate a ton of different processes with the Center of Excellence. So it's really, really helpful tool for our admins to adopt the platform at scale. There are some different things like Power BI reports, and it also helps you establish some conventions from an admin perspective. Once you're up and running from an admin perspective, you're going to start wanting to govern. So once the Power Platform is taken off at scale, you're going to want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on who your actual makers are and also ensuring that they're getting everything they need to be nurtured, which we'll cover in a second. Sprawl is also something that a lot of organizations have issues with when they adopt the Power Platform. So governance is also going to help you prevent sprawl and ensure that applications that are being created are useful and also in the correct location from a security standpoint. You're also going to have the ability to submit business cases for specific applications. So if you're a little concerned that there might be some loosey-goosey users out there with some DLPs, you can ensure that they're submitting appropriate business cases to implement those policies and also implement those applications. There are some approval processes and again, more automation that we can also include in here. And it also allows you to maintain some of those useful apps. Finally, the fun part of the CoE, in my opinion, the nurture component. So basically encouraging Power Addicts exactly like us to be able to use the Power Platform at scale and build apps that are actually encouraging productivity. So encouraging and teaching, there are definitely a couple of tools in here that the nurture components will help you do so. There are also a number of different things like best practices that we can help our makers also include when they're building their applications. Theming is a really fun part that I always include under the nurture catalog as well. There's also the ability to use the innovation backlog, which is brand new to the Center of Excellence. And I'm pretty sure I totally forgot to add that into the What's New section of this presentation. So the innovation backlog, we'll chat about that later on. And if I forget, please remind me. So first and foremost, the admin components. So you've downloaded CoE, you've gotten your solution, you're pretty much ready to go, and you want to just kind of kick things off. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of the core components from the CoE that I recommend putting more time into when you're getting set up with this. And the first and most important part, in my opinion, of the entire CoE platform is going to be the Power Platform admin app. So those of us who are comfortable with Dynamics, it's very simply just a model-driven app that's run off of those tables that I mentioned earlier, allowing you to display different information about the different resources, applications, flows, bots, RPAs, a bunch of stuff that are being run on your entire tenant. So while it's one app, it's actually looking across the entire tenant of everything. So it's giving you a really nice holistic view as an admin as to what exactly is going on, who's building what apps are getting used, what environments are being used, all that good stuff. So it's also a central location to maintain your settings as well. So when you first implement the CoE, you will be asked to set up a couple of environment variables. And some of those environment variables are actually stored in the CoE settings section here. So I don't know if you can see, it's kind of tiny, but in the bottom left-hand corner of your model-driven app, you have a section called Configure. And in here is where you're going to store things like your logo or your main color schemes or all of that good stuff. And again, I'll talk about this a little bit later. It's just a base that you can work off. I highly, highly recommend customizing this to fit your organization's needs. But there are a couple of different really nice Canvas apps that have made admins' lives so much easier, such as the Set App and Flow Permissions Canvas apps. And what this allows you to do is it allows you to add and remove maker permissions for different flows and apps at a glance. So you no longer have to go in and make changes manually. Everything is done via the actual Canvas app itself, which is really, really handy. It also gives you a really nice overview of some of your orphaned apps and flows. One of the things the CoE does really nicely is encourages ownerships of makers over their apps and over their flows, meaning that, you know, you built this, you own this, you have to take care of it. So it takes off a lot of the work from the admin. You can also do a lot of bulk changes of permissions as well. So really nice central location for you to do a lot of the work that would have otherwise taken admins a long, long time back in the olden days. The admin components also contain a ton of different flows. Specifically, the core components are going to contain 15 different flows that need to be configured straight out the box, which is a lot. So these particular flows need to get set up to allow you to read and write your data from your tenant into those tables I mentioned earlier. So that way it can be displayed easily in the admin app and makes life a lot easier for admins to keep an eye on how everything is working. It also helps you maintain that ownership I mentioned earlier, and it will flag some of those orphaned apps as well. But one of the coolest things that I really love about the core components is the fact that you can also keep an eye on what apps have been deleted. So it really is a full audit trail of everything that's been going on in the Power Platform, from apps, as you can see here, to connectors, custom connectors, flows, RPAs, PVAs, everything. So it's literally an admin's dream to be able to see everything in one go. And these flows need to be customized, configured, and triggered in order for all of that to work. Finally, in the admin components, you're also going to find something called the Power BI dashboard report. And this particular report is really handy, and I include it in the admin components because it's really easy to share with other executives, to be able to show exactly how the Power Platform is being utilized across an entire organization. But not only that, it is a really great tool to demonstrate ROI and also usage of the Power Platform. So I always picture this, and when I go into a client project, the people I'm working with are like, yeah, we're adopting the Power Platform, but our managers aren't really sure, executives aren't really sure this is a good investment. The Power BI report that you implement is going to show them from start to finish why the Power Platform is a fantastic low-code, no-code platform to implement at the organizational level, but also gives the executives a really nice feel of being able to see exactly what's going on. So it's a really holistic view. And of course, it's Power BI, so it's absolutely beautiful and very easy to read. Once you've gotten all of your admin components, you've set up the Power Platform, you are ready to go, and you've pushed it out to your organization, we now need to seriously talk about governance, because if we don't implement governance across the Power Platform, things can go from bad to worse to disaster really, really quickly. So it's important that we maintain and keep an eye on our resources and also our expenditure for the Power Platform. So managing sprawl is a huge, huge concern for a lot of clients that implement Power Platform when they first start working with it. And there are several tools within the governing components solution that will help you manage that. And the first thing I always like to talk about is the Developer Compliance Center app. And again, just a really pretty Canvas app that allows our makers to check and see if their applications are in compliance. And what that means is the admins can set up a bunch of different rules and things that they would say, okay, if you want your app to be used at a global scale or an organization scale, it has to be in compliance with these different things. If a maker creates an app that is supposed to be used by an organization, they can also then submit a business case through this app saying why they want it to be used or why it should be made compliant and used for global usage across the organization. There are also different tools for managing teams creation. And this is something I've seen recently with a lot of my projects, is the ability for companies to turn on just general teams creations. So if you do that every time you create a team, as a lot of people know in Teams, it's also going to create an entire SharePoint site. It's going to also eat up resources if we don't keep an eye on that. And again, sprawl is a serious concern. So there are tools also to manage your team's creation. And one of the things I love is the flow that basically says managers have to submit a justification for each team that is created. Therefore, the admins can keep control as to whether or not a team is actually required or not for their specific submission, or whether or not, a group chat is more appropriate. So again, giving the admins that control to ensure that resources are being allocated correctly. And there's also some really nice flows that you can implement to email new team members to guide them on a new team that has been created, on the resources available to them as well. So some super nice governance tools that are available to help manage sprawl. Other things that I think are super useful, and I have seen this on a project recently where we came into the organization and they had already adopted Power Platform at scale, but they were definitely experiencing sprawl and a bunch of apps and flows that had been implemented and hadn't really been deleted or kept track of or anything like that. So there is an app archive and cleanup model-driven app that you can implement as well. I personally recommend popping this into the admin app overall, just to kind of keep things in one central location. But you can basically set up the flows to set rules on when and how to archive unused apps and flows. So basically an app hasn't been modified in 3 months, or it hasn't been used in a year, or anything like that. You can modify those flows. And what you can then do is you can notify the app owner of basically saying, hey, we're going to archive this. If you don't let us know why you should not archive it, that kind of thing. And then you get to keep a full log of the apps and a complete audit trail of everything that's been deleted as well within the model-driven app itself. So again, making life easier for admins is really helpful, and thus also ensuring that resources are allocated to the correct places. And as I mentioned, we do have some of those auditing tools as well. There is a really nice business process flow that you can implement too for the admin to see exactly what stage an application is in. So when I say what stage it's in, it basically does the app meet maker business requirements? Is it a high-risk app? What kind of policies does it use? What kind of connectors does it use? That kind of thing. Is it in the appropriate environment for the application? We're going to talk about the Power Platform Adoption Framework in just a minute too. And also, you have the ability to highlight apps in the app catalog, and we're going to take a look at the nurture components as well in a second. The nurture components, my favorite part of the Center of Excellence Starter Kit. The first thing that the nurture component does really well is it encourages brand new makers. So I know all of us have had that feeling of creating your first ever Canvas app and being like, this is totally badass, I can do amazing things with this platform. Basically, the CoE allows you to automatically send an email to a new maker, be like, hey, you built your new app. This is super cool. You can do so much more. Here are some information on how to get training and how to develop your skills in the Power Platform. Other things the nurture components include are the ability to have your makers register for in a day. So we've all done Power Platform in a day. We've done app in a day, PBA in a day, all that great stuff. There are Canvas apps built in that allow your makers to register for that specific training, and also some flows to remind them to attend the training. So again, you're nurturing and encouraging your new makers on the Power Platform and creating those super users that your organization needs. So again, when you are inspiring your current makers, there are a couple of things, and this is not the right image for this slide, but hey, we're going to roll with it. There is an app catalog and also a template catalog Canvas app that works really well. So you can basically have these catalogs for your makers to flick through and kind of get some inspiration from, download, modify, play around, and kind of do some training on their own pace as well, which is really nice. And there's also a really nice flow that will keep your makers up to date. So if they sign up for newsletters on the Power Platform, flows will kick off once a week or once a month, just kind of updating your makers on what's cool and what's new on the Power Platform. Because as us Power addicts know, everything changes on a daily basis. Who knows, next week, CDS, Dataverse, whatever, it will probably be called something obscure. And as a bonus, I like to kind of keep the theming components a little bit separate, because while it's not really required when you're using the CoE, I definitely recommend taking a look at it. I don't think the theming components are core or super necessary. I think they could definitely do with some beautifying and a little bit more work, but nonetheless, they're there and I think they're really useful. So the theming components allow your makers to download themes and use them as a .msapp file to basically apply specific color themes and specific fields to any of the apps that they're actually making. So if you have a very strict brand guidelines, some of the clients I have been working with are super strict about what color they use or what logo they use. The theming catalog can be used to help your makers encourage that and stay on brand. So now we've kind of gone through a couple of the core components of the Center of Excellence. I'm going to go through how you actually get it. So rather than sticking up a QR code, Alison, your QR codes are beautiful, by the way. I'm really digging the purple. I suck at QR codes and I never scan them. So instead, we're going to do this. Google it. Basically, this particular line will get you directly to the Center of Excellence Starter Kit once you Google it. It's going to be the very first option that you hit. And from there, you're going to hit the download button. Once you download it, you're going to get the zip file of all those insane solutions that I just showed you, and you're going to import the solution. And next thing I'm going to recommend you guys do before you install this is just be aware of connection getting. So basically, there's going to be a ton of connections you're going to have to set up. So when I say take your time installing these, you're going to need to take your time installing these. It's going to take a couple of days at the very least. This isn't just a simple install and you're good. Couple of best practices real quick. Few things I've noticed that I would recommend when installing the CoE is you should definitely have it in its own environment. Make sure you set up a service user to maintain those connections too. This is really, really helpful when installing any kind of new application. And make it personal. Any of the out-of-the-box flows that you tend to send to your users, make sure that they're on brand and they're seen specifically for your environment. Again, take your time. The CoE is definitely not a one-day install. And also, it is a starter kit. So make sure that you customize this as your Power Platform posse grows. So this is something I highly, highly recommend. And now we're going to talk a little bit about the Power Platform Adoption Framework. So read, adopt, and implement the Power Platform Adoption Framework. The Power Platform Adoption Framework was built by some of my absolute favorite people at AIS, some faces here that you would definitely recommend. If you don't recommend Andrew's face, or if you don't recognize Andrew's face, I'm not really sure where you've been for the last year. But the Power Platform Adoption Framework was built and designed by the community for the community based on years of implementation and experience. And I did include a QR code for this one because it's definitely an important one to scan. So for this, there's a couple of things that we talk about when we mention the Power Platform Adoption Framework. It's basically designed to help you adapt, implement, and grow at scale by allowing you to categorize different apps based on their risk assessment, based on their usage, based on how they need to be nurtured, all this good stuff. I'm not going to go super into depth in it. I know that tomorrow, if you are attending BizApps at Speed, Andrew and Lee are going to be doing a full presentation on the Power Platform Adoption Framework, but you can also scan the QR code and check out powerplatform.as if you want any more information on that. But if you're talking about Center of Excellence, you cannot implement the Center of Excellence without reading the Power Platform Adoption Framework. They kind of go hand in hand. So if you do one without the other, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. So I highly, highly recommend reading this if you're going to implement Power Platform correctly and at scale. Lessons learned. So I have been doing this for a minute with the Center of Excellence, and there's a couple of things I have definitely learned based on implementations with our clients. The first thing I highly, 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 highly recommend is that you go through each flow individually and make sure that they are set up appropriately for your organization. They are meant as a framework, they're not gospel. So ensure that when you're going through the flow, the language is appropriate, the connections are appropriate, the actions are appropriate, all that kind of stuff is super important. If you just plug and play and go, you're going to have a nightmare. The second thing I highly recommend is think about how your makers are going to be impacted by each part of the Center of Excellence that you implement. So for example, a few of these flows may trigger 100 times for one maker, or they may trigger once for one maker. Think about how these are triggered and think about how your end users are going to implement. At the end of the day, the Center of Excellence is there to encourage our makers. It's not there to put them off the Power Platform. Again, you're going to hear me say this time and time again, commit the time and the resources to getting it implemented correctly. If you do not give this the time it needs, you're not going to do it fully and it's going to be half-assed, and you do not want to do that. And again, customize it. Again, everything is a framework. Everything can be modified. Everything needs to be done in line with what your organization needs. It's basically just a family of solutions and a bunch of tables and a bunch of fields. We're all super comfortable with that. So ensure that you modify and customize it in line with exactly what your makers and your organization need. Licensing. This is something that comes up an awful lot, especially with our clients in premium licensing for Dataverse. The CoE has a lot of apps that require premium licenses. So just kind of think through who needs access to what and whether or not you need to make some modifications, SharePoint, if you need to. And again, make the decision. Don't talk about implementing the CoE. Actually make the decision to go ahead and implement it, and your life will be so much easier. And with that, I have any questions. And if you guys need to find me, here's my half-baked thank you slide if anybody has any questions for me.
I've got a quick question while other people are thinking of one. So how many makers would you expect to be the kind of entry level for this, or what size of enterprise? So is there kind of a minimum size that this would be applicable for?
That's a really good question. The CoEs that I have implemented have been at massive organizational scales. Like the one I recently did was for a really large financial company here in the US with I think they had like 5,000 makers or something like that. So active makers. This wasn't even once we implemented CoE. I would say starting small is really nice because that way you can take the time to customize a lot of those flows and actually nurture. And I find that if you train the trainer, you can also encourage more makers in the organization. So I don't really think that there's necessarily a size requirement for the CoE to be implemented.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a couple of questions in chat. One you may have answered already, really, but maybe expand on that a little bit. But it's from Manoj, which is about logos, and you mentioned there in the model-driven app, you can set your kind of, I'm assuming corporate theming, that kind of thing. So could you just explain how that works a little more?
Yes, absolutely. So in some of the CoE flows, what they do is they will send out emails to your makers, but what they'll do also is they'll pull in data directly from the settings table in the environment. So you can basically say, this is the URL for the logo, this is the HTML content for the top part of the email, which is a customization we made at the last CoE implementation I did. Because if anybody's done CoE implementation, they'll note that the emails that go out to the makers are absolutely awful. And I come from an email marketing background, so for me, I just couldn't deal with it. So what we did was we modified the settings section of the CoE to include some HTML that we could populate into those emails just by basically pulling in that particular field using dynamic content in the flow. So super smart, different ways you can use the CoE for maintaining standards.
Nice. And I think that's a good point, that this is a starter kit. It's not a, this is going to do everything for you. It gives you a load of components that you can then build on top of, which I think is really clever. Yeah, there is a lot to unpack. I've been through, the docs and everything, and I can only pretend to understand about a quarter of it, but there's a huge amount of content there. Did have another question, which is from Peter Cutts. Hi, Peter. What is the minimum? This is maybe something that Neil asked already, but what's the minimum size org that the features and subsequent overhead and management of the CoE would be suitable for? So how many makers, apps, etc. So it's a fair question, I think.
Again, it is a great question. Again, I don't think there should really be a minimum. I honestly think if you're considering implementing Power Platform at any level or any scale, the CoE should really be implemented alongside it. Obviously, a minimum of one admin, of course, to maintain, depending on the size of your organization and depending on the time constraints of that particular admin. But I would highly, highly recommend, if you're looking at implementing Power Platform at any level or any size organization, the CoE should strongly be taken into consideration. And the nice thing about the CoE is you can implement in stages. So core components will get you that admin section, things like that. But if you want to later on implement nurture, you can do. It doesn't all have to be done in one go.
Really good point. Yeah. I think, it seems like it does a lot of stuff, and you would need to put a lot of effort into sort of maintaining it. But at the same time, this is what companies want. They want that governance. They want that kind of insight into what people are doing. And this is a great start. This gets you so much further than trying to do that kind of on your own or building stuff yourself.
I've got a question, but I think it might lead to rather than an answer, a whole nother presentation. So it feels like it's massive, and we could cherry pick God knows how many things out of it. And if somebody was small and starting off, it kind of, where do we look for the detail on those maybe 2, 3, 4 things that are worth doing first to then build on top? And I don't know whether the answer to that is so big it would be another presentation.
I don't think so. So on the docs.microsoft.com, they have actually recently included a video by the person whose name completely escapes me right now. Maybe one of you guys, y'all know his name at Microsoft, who takes care of the PowerCat team, where he did full kind of hour-long videos of each of the different components of the CoE. Really, really helpful. Highly, highly recommend looking at this for implementation.
Yeah, that's actually on that like homepage for the starter kit. There's a link to the YouTube videos, and there's quite a good overview that breaks down a lot of those different areas that Emma mentioned, maybe a bit more detail. So yeah, very useful to go through those.
Some of it is out of date, though, because the CoE is consistently changing, which is a beautiful thing and also a horrific thing about the technology that we work with. But yeah, definitely take it with a grain of salt. If you see something that looks a little bit different, it's supposed to probably look a little bit different. But I have found the CAT team to be super responsive if I had any questions or problems.
So I was just going to ask that, how would you get in contact with those people like Manuela, who's on Twitter a lot, and who's a really good person to ask. But what do you do to get in contact with those people?
Being one of the blessed MVPs, I do happen to have the direct channel to some of those. But for those of us lucky enough not to carry the burden of being an MVP, you can use Twitter always. The guys on Twitter are super helpful.
Yeah,
or just
I'd
ping
echo that as well.
myself if you need me to ask a question for you and you're not getting the answer that you need. I'm more than happy to always chat in with Manuela directly.
Great stuff. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah,
I think that's it for the questions. If anybody thinks I've missed one that's gone through, loads and loads of thank yous and lots of really good information there. So thank you really for doing this session. I think this is an area that is just going to grow and grow and grow in terms of people needing this sort of functionality. So it's a good one just to get an understanding of if you're a consultant or a solution architect or, something like that. Just if nothing else, even if you're not putting in right away, just to understand what's there is useful. And that's why sessions like this are great as well. So thank you very much. Just see some messages coming in. Lots of thank yous. Yes, I think we'll call it a day there. If anybody has any questions about either of the topics that we've covered tonight, or just general questions about something that you have a problem with, or something that you're looking at, we have some very, very experienced people on the call. Free consulting time now, so if you do have any questions, chime in, put your hand up.
Intent's very free, aren't you? He'll answer everything. Will.
Lots of good thank yous. I'm always a little surprised that people don't take advantage of this a bit more, because this is like, how much would you have to pay to get this group of people on the call? But anyway, so if you can think of questions, then chime in. If not, we will call it a day there. Can we have a session on how we can track telemetry in CRM? That's from Manoj again. Thank you for the question, Manoj. Really good question in that I guess it's maybe a little bit more about what you mean as far as telemetry goes. Is that sort of usage? There is integration with a Microsoft product called Application Insights, although that's called something bigger now. I'm trying to remember what it is, but Application Insights is part of that. And as part of Wave 2 last year, you were supposed to be able to integrate your own application insights into CRM, and that will give you a lot of that telemetry about, performance and usage and stuff like that. But I haven't looked recently if that's actually come out yet. That might still be yet to come as part of Wave 2, but it's coming if it's not there already. So definitely look at application insights. All right, let's call it a night then. In that case, thank you very much for everyone who attended, everyone that's spoken, obviously. If you want to come off mute and do a nice round of applause, then let's do that.
My laptop will fall if I clap my hands, man.
Thank you, guys. And thanks for attending. And we look forward to seeing you again in March.